Welcome to Growing Up B2B. I'm Ed Delia, and I'm the second generation president of Delia Associates. We are the place where B2B brands go to grow. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Growing Up B2B. I'm your host, Ed Delia, and I'm the second generation president of Delia Associates, the place where B2B brands go to grow. I'm so excited to introduce our guest today. He's Richard Blank, Chief Executive Officer of Costa Rica's Call Center. CCC, or Costa Rica's Call Center, is a state-of-the-art outsourcing company that offers high-quality telemarketing services to small and medium-sized companies looking for a proven method of expanding their business. Richard, thank you so much for joining us today.
Ed, I'm so happy to be with you, growing up B2B. Of course, you're always growing. You never stop growing. So I'm going to share a lot of good stories and advice today on what got me to where I am.
Awesome, awesome. Hey, let's go back to the beginning. So your early days at Costa Rica's Call Center. So what inspired that? How did that originate?
When I was 27 years old, I had a one in a million opportunity to move here for just a couple months. A friend of
Okay.
mine had a call center, said, Richie, come down, teach some English, take a break. And I did, and I decided to stay. And I learned the business from the inside out, not at sea level. And so once again, if you think about the 4 years I was there, besides having the time of my life, I was also learning a business. And then
Awesome.
18 years ago, I threw my hat in the ring and started the company. And our first seat was February 6th of 2008. And just here we are today. The longevity speaks. It's not the easiest of industries, but if you do certain things proper, you will be able to survive.
And not the easiest time of year, 2008, to start a business, I would think. That was, we were in the midst of a global recession, if memory serves, right? 2008.
No, no, of course, but it was very interesting because I worked at my friend's center, and then for a period of time, I actually was working at my family's real estate company in the United States, but I was doing it
Okay.
virtually, making phone calls. And then when the market fell, I had a little bit of cash saved, and I just created the website and said, listen, let me just see what happens for a year. If nothing happens, at least I can pretend like I had a job. And little did I know the phone started ringing. And what was interesting is when I read my website now, I have tons of experience and I can add to it. But prior to that, it was more of a projection. I knew the call center industry, I just wasn't a CEO yet. And so I didn't have the penthouse suite and the rows of hundreds of agents. What I needed to do in order to start my business was renting a turnkey station at a blended center, like an internet cafe. So I could scale accordingly, pay what I needed to, the overhead, the margins, the taxes, and I could do something. And so it wasn't glamorous, but I could start. And I used technology. I used the infrastructure of Costa Rica, the large labor pool of the call center agents. And I don't know, just by magic dust and the stars being aligned, and it was my lucky day. All of a sudden, people decided to give me the business, and I was able to grow from there.
Well, it may have been a little bit more than luck, but certainly an interesting start. So, talk a little bit more about family. So, your family, your upbringing, what role did that play in maybe shaping a business mindset and maybe even an entrepreneurial mindset to desire to go out and launch something like this?
And I thank you for your interest in my family history. My family came from Eastern Europe at the turn of the 20th century. And both sides of my family, my mother and my father's side, they all
Right.
were entrepreneurs. Now, on my mother's side, my great grandparents, Louis and Bessie, they worked together. They ramped up the family business that was in the fashion and the garment industry. And on my father's side, they were doing things where it was like on credit before the Sears catalogs around Philadelphia. We would do
Hmm.
like kitchen and home goods. But anyway, make a long story short, it's in our blood. Besides being
Yeah.
a nomad and an entrepreneur, and as they say, blood is thicker. And so you can trust your family with certain things. And you know that it's guaranteed. We're all in it together. And so there are certain positions where you needed the super glue and you needed someone to have the key or the
Yeah.
combination. And I've also learned that people that were not family that you have trusted might have disappointed you or you overestimated them. And so these are the things, at least if with family, you have a track record and you know how they handle chaos and how they communicate and what sets them off and what relaxes. And so you could almost adjust your arguments, your working relationship accordingly so it flows. Now, naturally, there's other areas where I tell you what, I was never, ever going to ruin my marriage or a relationship with my family over an employee or a coworker. If I had to make that sort of decision, if it came to that point and all the checkpoints and preventative measures did not work, I'm not going to sacrifice the relationship with my brother because of you. It's just not going to happen. Or hate my mother. It's just,
Understood.
these are things you're asking that are crossing the line. And so it is delicate, but then again, it gives you a little more of a firm agreement with people.
That's really interesting, though, that your background, you grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, so it was there. You had something of a, maybe not the exact roadmap, but some roadmaps of how that was done, and that was the way it was done in your family for the most part. That's transferred into you. So that being said, if you look back to some of the family members that around you, were there any maybe one or two key lessons of leadership that you might have garnered from them as you started into this new venture?
Of course, being assertive, but not aggressive, showing up. If someone asks you to do something, not only show up, but be on time.
Yeah.
Maybe do a little bit of due diligence prior to meeting somebody. So instead of just having small talk during cocktail hour, we can find five things really in common. And I always found my parents charming because they always asked follow-up questions with their friends and acquaintances. And so people like that. They always spoke very well of my parents and grandparents because once again, they showed sincere interest in them, remembered anniversaries, birthdays, or the fact that you won that football game. I'll keep reminding you of that. These are just the little things that add up. And also they had social grace. They had a good network of friends. So on Friday and Saturday nights, they were always going out with couples. They would entertain at the house. My grandma always had her calendar filled. And so I learned about being sociable and
Mhm.
accepting invitations, having parties, doing invitations. And so these are the sort of things that take work. But if you do it, you can meet people and do business or just grow your life in a more comfortable way compared to having it be a forced fit on time where you don't want to be there.
Yeah.
It's all different ways of adjusting time accordingly.
Awesome. Awesome. That's really interesting. Sounds like you come from a great family too. As I listen to you recount your family members and the impact they've had, that's really remarkable. So now bringing it back into present day, you've got a couple of family members in the business today, correct?
That is correct. Some have come and gone, and that's
Mm.
okay because they're following their own pursuits and dreams. But the longest family member, besides my wife, myself, that was with me to start the company, is my nephew, who's been with
Mhm.
me for 16 years.
Wow.
He started when he was 13 years old.
Oh my.
Now, legally, I'm allowed to have him there. He was like an intern. I was having him do SEO and just hanging around. But I tell you what, fidelity, loyalty, guaranteed. That's amazing for me. And what sort of gratitude can you show besides
Mhm.
being so thankful and considerate and
Mhm.
always finding ways to just besides paying you well, giving you experience so I can make you more self-reliant and grow. And what's interesting, Ed, when you're in a certain position of leverage like myself, I referred it back to the greatest teachers that I had back in the day. It wasn't about taking your exam. Listen, man, if you want to take that paper home with you and rewrite it after I give you some suggestions and bring it back, the goal is you learned. If you need that
Mhm.
A, you got to grind it out.
Yeah.
And so I love the teachers that gave second and third chances. So they took away the pressure of a time test. They just wanted you to enjoy it. And so
Mhm.
for me, I just don't give second chances. I find right bus, right seat. I find areas in which people I think will grow the best. And I've been making some pretty good decisions lately.
That's awesome. So tell me about your nephew. What role does he play in the company now?
Nice. Every castle needs the Joker. Now I'm only kidding, but I tell you what, this young man has such a personality that he brings everybody up.
Hmm.
He's the kind of person when he walks in, everyone smiles. He's very young at heart, even though he's a man that has a child. And he was a professional soccer player. He played for La
Wow.
Liga. Yeah, for La Liga in Costa Rica, which is a club team,
Wow.
but pretty much up there. And so
Yeah.
If he had certain sponsorships and didn't have to work, there was a good chance he could have played in Europe. But that's not the point. The fact is that this young man had such structure and discipline and drive at a young age, didn't do drugs, was really good and healthy. And I admire things like that. And so I take those sort of skills and accomplishments so he can relate to the people better that love to play soccer. He goes, listen, man, I can do all this stuff. And I used to do this. And I've seen that he has certain keys to open doors that I don't have. I'm a hockey player. He's a soccer player. No one understands ice hockey. They have no idea who Bernie Perron from the Flyers is. And so that doesn't help me at all. But so as I say, but I tell you what, I've seen a young man grow. It's interesting. If you had not seen him for the last 10 years, you would have seen such leaps and bounds. But someone watching grass grow or my hair recede, it's just gradual. And so I've noticed it, but some people, when they see him, realize the growth, and it's paying it forward. Mm-hmm. It's the mentors we had, Ed, that balanced our bike and got us to the next levels.
Sure. Said. And as a high level athlete, my experience has always been when they transfer that drive and that fight into business, it usually translates well, because a lot of times they don't think in the context of defeat or failure. They just think in the context of, how do I win? How do I get better? How do I improve? And that's the mindset of a high-level athlete. And when they bring that into business, that's a powder keg usually. So that's awesome. Yeah. Now, how about your wife? What role does she play in the business, Richard?
Oof. Well, I might be the owner, but she's definitely the boss. Now, she's a Central America paradise girl. She's from Costa Rica. Okay. And so besides the trust factor, I have a home court advantage. I have an individual that is going to have a law degree shortly. She was the director of human resources for 18 years, ran a company of 150 people. And without my Grace Bourbon, this would have never happened. It's like a rock band. It's like In Excess. Let's say I was Michael Hutchins. She's the complete band. I mean, you do it like that. And I appreciate that. I respect that. As I say, we try not to bring work home, but sometimes we have to talk about it. I've never fallen on a sword for somebody. I've made my arguments. I've done my best, but there was no way I was going to let somebody come in between us. And there are certain areas where compliments are needed. It's given. When other areas, when suggestions need to be made, it's given. Usually more on her end to me. And here's the skinny. I'm from the United States. I grew up a little bit differently. Not saying the Costa Rican culture has similarities, but come on. And so I call the balls and the strikes. I'm a straight shooter. I give some guilt. I believe in people. And there are certain times, I'm not saying I do things against the Costa Rican labor laws, but I try to bend. I don't want to break. I give Billy a second chance. And sometimes things happen outside of the office that might make you come late or have you distracted. I've been in those shoes, and it's made me being able to relate to the agents better. But let's just say good cop, bad cop. Unfortunately, somebody has to follow the labor laws and has to do things correctly, and sometimes has to tell you that it might not be a perfect fit for you. And so obviously, that's where a lot of the rabia, that's where the bad energy goes. They have to blame somebody. And so human resources usually takes the hits. And hey, but I tell you what, though, she's brilliant. And since it isn't her native tongue, it's with her culture, it would make the most sense to have somebody here that would be able to communicate with the employees in the best way.
Makes sense. So how do you try to separate work and family life? Do you try to draw lines, or are you and your wife a bit more fluid about business and home life? How does it work in your situation?
It's like when the hot water's on too hot, you got to turn it off. There are certain times when we know it sways one way or to the left, and what we do is it's a reaction. We'll look at each other and give the extended look and just start laughing. Then we go, listen, Eddie boy, just chill down, okay? Calm down for a second, okay? Turbo, you're going way too fast. And what that does, takes it from a 10 to a 2, and that 8, I move forward into, look what we just did, we fixed it. And then we realize, do we talk about it tomorrow, just sleep on it? Do we need to hash it out now so we can enjoy our night? Or do we just look at each other and go, yeah, okay, good. And then we know the answer, we move forward. And so we have our governor switch. There's that big red button. We can press it at any time.
And clear lines of communication, it sounds like, to know when to hit that button and how to hear each other and how to listen, it sounds
Choose
like.
your battles wisely and
Yeah. Yep.
seriously. And as I
Sure.
say, there's certain levels of certain things that have to be there. And as I say before, I never want to cross the line of disrespect. I don't want to step on her toes in her department. And I'm the last person to make that sort of final decision when her signature is on the documents with the government. And I know my place. I know my place. But as I say before, there are certain people that make a difference in a campaign. They're the Dennis Rodman. On the court, they're the lead rebound champ, and they're amazing, all-star. Off the court, they have a circus around them. I like that sometimes, but sometimes it can cause a distraction. And so it's so labor intensive. It's like
Mm.
13th grade. Do you want to be the cool teacher or do you want to be the strict Dean Warmer who puts you on double secret probation? It's the worst. I never wanted to be that guy. I never wanted to lead through fear.
Understood. And by virtue of you, and she was with you almost at the beginning, right? From the start of the company. Would you say that being a husband-wife team, has that influenced the culture? Does the culture of the business carry something of a family style feel, or how do you bring that into the business, or do you?
So interesting you say that. You know how some kids will go to mommy and say, "Hey, mommy, can I have some ice cream?" She goes, "No." Then they go to Daddy Eddie. He goes, "Of course you can. I love you." And so there are some people that play the middle. They
Yeah,
hedge their bets. And I
yeah,
don't like that. I don't
yeah,
like that at all. Or they said, "Richard said that I could." I go, "Richard said
yeah,
I could." And I don't like that sort of game.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then some people might, as I mentioned, when they see us, they might not see us even as a couple. They see us as owners and bosses and whatevers. But
Mhm.
you have to realize something. It's like when you saw your teacher ever ride a bike, you're like, they ride bikes? And no, we have a beautiful life. And if you see us outside the office, you'll see us strolling and arm and smiling. And what are we supposed to be yelling at each other at work? Seriously. And so I think we need to shatter some misconceptions that even though people might have a position or responsibilities, you have no idea what they do behind closed doors. The most beautiful people in the world do things when the cameras are off and everyone's away. They're the ones that lay their jackets down over puddles and say, "Puppies," because that's the real person. And so I don't need to prove anything to anybody. But if they happen to bump into me when I'm not in the office and we're on a level playing field, they might be surprised. I'm the sort of person that clicks his heels and is having a wonderful day.
That's awesome. So getting back to your nephew for a moment. So there's a family member in the business.
Yes,
Do you treat like how do you balance? So you've got a family member, you've got your wife, you've got non-family members. How do you balance? How do you make sure that they don't see you as a preferential treatment versus other personnel who might be of a peer level or similar level than either your nephew or your wife might be in the organization?
of course. I have to be very careful in regards to what I say to people because I could get in trouble. They could go to the Ministerial del Trabajo and say that I was using discrimination or did something. But remember The Sopranos?
Of course.
Remember how Tony used to speak to Christopher? Everyone knew Christopher was the nephew and he loves him to death. But then there were a couple times for Napoleon the gang, he had to say something. But with Jason, I can curse. I can give a ton of guilt. I can let him know the deal as his uncle
Hmm.
because he knows I love him. And I
Hmm.
always say, "Good job, Jason." When he's messing up or if he's doing a great job, I'll say, "Great job, Jason." And so is it a good thing for me? Absolutely, because it's old school. I wish more people could speak to you the way they should. There were coaches or teachers back in the 70s and 80s. Today, they would have gotten in trouble. Back in the day, they set you straight because your parents didn't do it, or they were the real mentors that made you into a man. And I'm not saying that this old school way is the only way, but maybe someone has not told you of mustard on your face, or you could be better than this, or what's going on? Last week you did 44. Why are you only at 12 today? And so sometimes when I call them out, only because I can do it, I'm not calling you out on something I can't do. I can get on the phone and make my 10 an hour. Why aren't you doing? And they know I can. So let's
Hmm.
not even go there. We're not even going there. They'll knock on my door later that day after I gave them a heavy dose of Philly guilt. Okay, that you're better than this, Ed. This is out of character for you. Come on, buddy. Remember, I
Hmm.
told your mom last week how great you were when she came to pick you up. And so I'll get that knock and they'll say, Richard, may I have a moment? Of course you may, anytime. And then they'll come into my office. They'll not apologize to me on either crying, complaining, being off. They're apologizing to themselves for being at that stage because they didn't like what they saw. They realized they needed to shed some skin and get past that. And I believe that people can have breakthroughs. I believe that people can get to different levels. And if someone can come to me as a man or a woman and look me in the eye and go, listen, I was wrong earlier because I lost my cool or I wasn't composed, but I see what I can do to improve. I just want to let you know, thank you. Thank you for giving me coffee. Thank you for playing pinball with me in the game room. Or just let me cry for a minute, man. I got stuff going on at home, Ed. You got no idea. Don't tell anybody. I go, of course I'm not going to say anything. They go, you're the best boss ever. I go, yeah, because I know your name and I care.
Yeah.
And so through natural filtration and the rotation and the high attrition in my industry, I get the solid rocks because I was there when they needed me most. And
Mhm.
I asked for nothing in return, pulled them off the phone, or I gave them the public acclimates. And so I did the right thing that resonated. Do you understand? I made them feel better when they were the most vulnerable. And I could have broken them at that moment, but I didn't. And so this young man, Jason, who has been with me since he's been 13 years old, invested, look at those beautiful years of late teens and 20s with me.
Yeah.
That is a serious responsibility on my end. And so I didn't want to put too much in the backpack, too much weight. But I wanted to make sure he was getting stronger. And I
Yeah.
gave little things, had him sitting in on meetings and telling him what's going on and the things you would do, Ed, when you're budding a squire to a knight.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that mindset because a lot of times people, I think sometimes they give up on people and they say they can't get to that next level or they can't do this or they've got shortcomings. And I think that's sometimes that's the opportunity to break through. And if you can break through with somebody, you may have an awesome person on your team for life or for
That's right.
the tenure of their career. And it sounds like you have that in your nephew. So when it comes to your nephew or maybe others, is there a next generation, Richard? Is there a generation two for Costa Rica's call center or possibly your nephew being potentially groomed to be that next leader one day? Or are we too soon to make that call?
Oh, no. It's funny. You're reading my mind. I'm 52. I'm bald. I'm old. Carpe diem, man. I got to live my time. And I don't want to take too much of a step back, but
Hmm.
there's nothing wrong with being the coach of the football team and not just
Hmm.
being the QB1. And also, AI will make it capable for me to put, once again, information in the cloud that I could use. People
Hmm.
can work virtually. I can gather and just have individuals doing the empathy part for conversions and retentions. And finally, my next stage is this was so brick and mortar pre-COVID. Post-COVID, we've gone work from home and now we're almost going to be completely. But it was on site, mom and pop brick and mortar that I had to be here. And if I can do everything on the cloud, virtual, and just do it like that, this next generation, guess what, Ed? I'm hanging out with you for a week. I'm going to be traveling. I'm going to be places. And
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that this is even capable. But I want to take advantage of it now. I don't
Hmm.
mind working, but I'd like to give my eyes a new adventure.
Yeah.
And I think that's a healthy thing to do. So, yes, my friend, I have certain individuals where I would be overseeing, but I would love to promote them into certain positions where they would be running a company.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Excellent. I'm 52 as well, so I'm right there with you, Richard.
Man, you got good hair for your age. Damn.
It's a little less each year, but it's hanging in there.
Here's to our generation, my brother. We were the best.
So you had referenced obviously your nephew. We've talked about your wife, and you mentioned some other family members doing different turns in the business. When you assess, do I bring this family member into my business? How do you go through that thought process? Like, how does that, is it just a candid conversation, or do you think, do I bring a family member versus hiring from outside the family? Like, how do you think through some of those when they've come up, Richard? How have you thought through those decisions?
Well, I loved them before they even started working with me. And secondly, I never want to impede on their trajectory. If they're going to
Hmm.
school to be a lawyer, I'm not stopping that. But I've seen that I could be a filler in between jobs. Or as I say for my nephew, to give him hardcore work experience compared to just shelving boxes, which is nothing wrong with that. But as I say before, there are certain jobs where people could become multitasked. And it's been a nice relationship how it starts. It's
Mm.
always extremely respectful, and it's really more of assistance. My brother-in-law was assisting with security. My niece was my wife's assistant.
Okay.
And then the nephew is my assistant and also works on specific projects on the floor. Who else do we have? We had a couple other nephews that assisted us during the construction stages. Might
Okay.
as well hire them for that. And my
Yeah.
brother-in-law assisted us as well in the gray areas of it. And why not? If
Mm.
there's any way that I can pay it forward or include people, and if I have some money, great, I'd rather give it to you first. And I wanted to make sure that they were qualified for it, or if not, we could teach them. But it seemed to work out. But only my nephew was the one that was super long term. I don't know. He just won't go away. No, I'm only kidding. But no, but everyone else just came, did their thing, and decided to move on to their own paths. And that's a beautiful thing. At least we walked together for a while.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And certainly I'm second gen, but I have three older siblings and they all did a pass through Delia Associates at some point in their tenure. And
That's
for
right.
various reasons decided it wasn't a good fit. And I was the only one crazy enough to stick around for 30 years. There's some listeners out there and they're thinking about maybe contemplating joining a family business or being a part, or maybe it's an owner who's thinking about bringing a family member into their business. But before we get to that, any advice you might give for if there's a couple that's thinking about launching a business? So a husband-wife team that's saying, do we get into business together? Is there any piece of advice you might offer them?
Without sounding negative, be careful. You'll get what you want, but it's not what you wished for. It's not what you think. And there are going to be certain times, suggestion is like a tea kettle. You better have something to let that steam out.
Mm.
If not, you're going to say something at the wrong time. Go to the gym, hang out with your buddies, wash your car, decompress. And so it's obvious sometimes when I ask to speak the following day, or can we sleep on it, or do you mind? Can you let me go hit the gym first? It's a governor. You need governor switches if you're even close going to do this. And so, like that submarine, you better have four or five different compartment door closes, or you are going to sink, Ed. You're going to sink.
Okay.
And don't you dare only surprise your significant other on certain birthdays, holidays, anniversaries. It's since you're working together, yes, there is the advantage of that extra time together. So take advantage of that too, not just to pound out the work. And so do the surprise lunch. Or since our office building is in a wonderful neighborhood in Costa Rica, in Barrio Aranjuez, it's by the hospitals, universities, and parks and stuff. I just say, come on, it's 3:30. The afternoon is beautiful. Let's go get an ice cream. Just take a walk for a minute. And so my wife will say to me, and this might be good advice to your audience too, and it's a weird thing, but I understand it. She goes, you're so different when we're not at work. I'm the same person. She goes, no, you're not. I go, what do you want me to do? If I'm Philly and things are happening, I might curse and coffee's too cold. But if you want to see the real person, then do this then. Have comfortable silence. Really take that walk where you don't talk business, where you can just enjoy each other's firm grip and smile. And then you'll realize that the true relationship you have prior to the money and the success and the responsibility and the pressure, that's the core. That's the core. My
Mm.
wife and I truly love each other. There are times when she can't stand me. There are certain times where I need extra patience. But all in all, we've been together 25 years, in business for 18 years.
Yeah.
So she worked with some beautiful companies prior. She worked with a company called Cafe Brit. And
Hmm.
so she was selling high-end jewelry at the airport. She worked for Caterpillar as well. It's
Wow.
cool as a receptionist. And so she's had a bunch of really good jobs. And she was at Cafe Brit for, I think, like 6, 7 years. And my point being is If you love that person so much, you choose your battle. There should never, ever be a client, okay, an employee, coworker, whoever, that is more important than your marriage. I've lost clients because my wife maybe did not get along with certain clients, but she had a right to. There were certain clients that used profanity on the floor. She didn't like that. There were other clients that yelled on the phone and that were rude. She didn't like that either. These aren't deal
Mm.
breakers, but she says, how am I going to work with this guy if he keeps yelling at me?
Yeah.
And so the clients, and there are certain times when they would say, hey, can we make exceptions? No, we can't. These are the labor laws. You just can't do this. We're
Yeah.
responsible. And as I say, bad cop. But then again, these are the individuals that had to stand tall. And so it's not like I'm pushing her in the front to take the hits, but then you have to realize it's like the hockey goalie taking shots to the face.
Yeah.
You got to see. And then as myself, as the marketer, as this closer, as the trainer, that has its weight too. You have an offense and a defense part of a team. And so you grill too much. If you keep putting someone down or telling them, that they're not good enough, I'm not saying you need to be the Jackie Kennedy to the John F. Kennedy. I know that you really need a good woman to stand behind me. That's
Mm.
fine. But listen, if you see somebody's small wins like a first down compared to a touchdown, say something, especially someone in the department that has got to save an account, save somebody, or trying to prospect to bring in business. Compliment the little things, please. Because if you overlook that, you're like, yo, man, it's been 3 weeks. I finally got something. They didn't even say anything. Or I was in that office for 2 hours with this person yelling at me, and this person's not even bringing me a coffee or saying, how are you feeling? So be extremely attentive to these things too. And if you do that, if you just live half an hour to an hour a day and just keep double checking, you might 8 out of 10 the day. Two will
Yeah.
always fall through the cracks, but
Yeah.
that's enough to keep it floating
Yeah.
through the years. And my man, I hope I made sense on that. I don't want to get myself in trouble with my wife, but I wanted to explain people that work together. These are incredible things that have assisted me to allow me to have eyes on the back of my head.
Yeah. Yeah. It brings another level of the relationship, or at least, and I think sometimes people don't fully appreciate that when there's stresses and anxieties a day, and that needs to be factored in to the context of the relationship of the marriage too. And it's got to be strong enough to take the hits sometimes, and sometimes the strength of it will overcome those hits and make it all better, really. So it's quite a dynamic. And but when you think about it, not unlike a family member, who can you trust more than your life mate? So that's a powerful person to have side by side.
One last thing for you. You'll see the best in somebody and the worst in somebody.
For
Be prepared
sure.
for that too.
For sure. So, looking to the future a little bit, or maybe the here and now, what's something going on now at the Costa Rican Call Center or in your industry that's really exciting you right now?
The labor pool, I can get anybody anywhere in the world now because of
Okay.
VPNs and the technology. It just took away the synergy and my pizzazz of knowing people and walking the roads. But where do I see this industry going? Just like the buggy whip. Eventually,
Mm,
AI will take over 90% of my business. There is something called the uncanny valley theory, where if it gets too much like human beings, we freak out and then we got to readjust again. I get it. That's why when you have these integrated voice response, the IVRs or these robocalls or Judy trying to sell you time life subscriptions, it sounds perfect, but the timing is a little off and still it just doesn't seem 100% correct. It's like a mannequin, something
yeah.
off in nature. And so they're almost there. They're almost there. And when they do, a very good portion of my industry may not have a job, but the concierge, the real polished, skilled ones will be there to retain a client and to get that ball in the end zone. Or when people do want to press zero to speak to somebody in regards to their account, there will be that front line. And I think AI with these generated books and videos, it's fine. Okay. If that's what you want to do, it's almost like an exit sketch or something. You need to have the actual crayon or the flakes to make it. So there has to be something in between that medium. But my situation here is it's almost like color by numbers. You might think you're creating a masterpiece, but it's set out there for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun, but it's there.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like those race tracks where the car would just go around the track. That's fun for 10 minutes, but I'd rather have a car that can go anywhere. And so the artist, the writer, and even if you create 99 terrible poems and songs and paintings, that one makes up for it, and it's almost enough to last a lifetime. And me learning a second language is something that I've taken with me. AI couldn't do that for me. I can have a translator. I can have the machine. They could speak for it. I could use 99% of that. But there is something about putting that in me and bringing it out and connecting with people. I have the greatest go-go juice that I've ever given myself. And that would be taken away. And so I believe in the art of speech, and I want people to study their rhetoric, to look at the source, to expand their vocabulary, use better similes, but really expand and speak in a colorful way. Because most people are boring in their speech. They're monotone. They're not listening. And then you wonder why someone like on the Wolf of Wall Street or Blake from Glengarry and Boiler Room, when you hear Seth closing, these are professional speakers. They know their rhetoric. They have their pace. They can anchor and bond with people. They can readjust tones. They know tie-down questions. They're beautiful speakers. It can be trained. It can be worked on. Once again, it's a skill. And so I'm hoping that there will be people today that still practice public speaking and interactions and message delivery, because it's made me a career. It's given me a beautiful life and allowed me, when I've needed to express myself or console somebody, or just have that 1 in a million moment, I said the right thing. I've been very thankful for that as well.
Awesome. Said. Last question. If somebody, one of our listeners, wanted to learn more about you, your story, your journey, or learn more about your business, the Costa Rica's Call Center, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you, Richard?
And you know this, it's about buying that plane ticket and flying down to Costa Rica, especially when it's cold in the United States in the middle of winter. But no, if you guys want to give me a shout, 888-271-6750, Costa Rica's Call Center.com. And I tell you what, if any of your audience would just like to touch base and run a script by me, some rebuttals, it's free of charge. If you're friends with Ed, you're friends with me. And I'd be more than happy to make some suggestions or to talk about your metrics and your motivation, your supervisors and sales departments, because if I can pay it forward like you're doing on your podcast, you and I win the game, and you know that. And so that's why I'm here today, my brother, just to share some good advice with you and your amazing audience.
You certainly have done that tenfold, Richard. Many great takeaways. So thank you so much for taking the time today with us. This was really great.
Had the best time.
So we've been speaking with Richard Blank. He's the Chief Executive Officer for Costa Rica's Call Center. And again, I'm your host, Ed Delia. Thanks so much for joining us here on Growing Up B2B, and have a wonderful day. Thanks again, Richard.
Thank you, Ed.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning into Growing Up B2B. To explore more episodes and insights, visit podcast.delianet.com. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please give us a rating or review on your podcast platform of choice. Having worked with hundreds of family-led businesses across my career, and being a second-generation leader myself, I'm on a mission to help every family business I meet achieve next-level growth for their organization. So feel free also to connect with me on LinkedIn, and let's support each other. You can also find out more about my company at delianet.com. Again, I'm your host, Ed Delia, and thanks so much for joining us today. Take care.